This is Small Talk with Jill, exploring businesses and communities, one virtual interview at a time. Welcome to Small Talk, and today I'm thrilled to have with me Sonia Schultes, the owner of Tribe Yoga, and Kelsey Lang, the general manager. It's been an inspiration to me to watch the journey of Tribe Yoga, as I have my Tribe Yoga shirt on, and I think I was there close to the beginning of the evolution of your dream, Sonia, when it was Murphy House. Maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about where you were in the vision, and then we can talk about where it is now with Kelsey.
Yeah, sure. So my family and I lived in Blacksburg, Virginia, and that's where I did my teacher training for yoga. Completed it in 2014, also completed my bachelor's degree in 2014. And then in 2015, we ended up moving back to Oneonta. At that time, because my training was primarily in the hot yoga lineage, I didn't have anywhere to practice. And I share this story with all of my students where I told Jay, I'm going back to Blacksburg unless I could find a place to do hot yoga. So he bribed me to stay by saying, what if we just build our own hot yoga studio in our home? So we had this small sunroom where we could cram 6 people in like sardines, plus me as the teacher. I invited some friends to come out and try out hot yoga because there isn't anywhere within a 60-mile, 80-mile radius that offers hot yoga to Onyana, and they loved it. And so I thought, well, hey, maybe I can just make a little business out of this and just invite people to come to my home and practice. And before you know it, it's booked out weeks in advance and then months in advance. We just got to a point where we knew that we had to expand, that there was enough of a demand for it and interest for it within the community. Murphy House Yoga simply fell out or came out of a personal need to have a hot yoga studio, but then having the opportunity to meet all of the other yoga teachers within Oneonta and surrounding, and realizing that there wasn't a dedicated yoga studio, close to Oneonta or within Oneonta. So after taking some classes from them and inviting them to teach at my home, we eventually expanded into Tribe Yoga. And Tribe Yoga has had 2 studios now.
I think you've kept from that Murphy House to Tribe Yoga is that small, intimate connection. Although, admittedly, I've been a poor yogi for a while here. I'm always passionate in following what you're doing. I think that connection that you have with, I hate to say customer client, because it isn't. You really do make it a family, and you've taken it to that new studio. And Kelsey, maybe you can talk a little bit about how that has evolved, and also if we can touch about that word again, how the business is pivoting based on society now.
It's something that Sonia and I feel to be true, but to hear it from others, that they feel as much as a family as we do, it is mildly validating. Y'all are our people. When I moved back, I grew up in the area, and when I moved back to the area, Sonia was still in the Deet Street location in the ground floor. So it was about twice the size as her home location. We had the opportunity to apply for one of the fabulous micro enterprise grants. So right as I got involved with Tribe, we had already begun dreaming about doubling again and making that space even bigger, because again, our popular classes were packed. And the problem that we were seeing was that, people would sign up in advance to make sure they could get their spot. And then if something came up last minute, they would have to cancel. And then we would have to frantically call everybody on the wait list, say, hey, can you come? We have a spot now. There was that little overlap so often that we said, it's time. Let's do it. Let's dream bigger. Let's get bigger and watch our family grow even bigger. The rest was kind of magical. We had almost a solid year in the new space before we had to pivot. We were seeing just such an amazing amount of growth in the community, and watching people deepen their practice because they were able to access the classes more frequently, and being in a bigger space enabled us to have maybe not even so many people in the class. Like it wasn't that our attendance was so much larger for every class, but you could spread out. You could have a little bit more of that time to yourself to really grow your practice. I think one of our favorite parts of the new build of the new studio, which is right upstairs from our old one of our favorite things about it was that we were able to construct a lobby in a place where people could commune before and after class. Whereas before we had that tiny little room where it was like, okay, we just had this magical experience together. Now get your stuff and get out of the way behind you. And, you know, a scrumble of people, especially in the winter with all of, you know, our New York coats and boots and everything's transitioning to a space where we actually, you know, we could have built the studio to be larger for a bigger capacity, but Sonia and I never had a question about what we wanted, and what we wanted was a place to hang before and after where we could start to deepen and cultivate even more relations.
I think what and I've had this, it's been a while since I've had this conversation with Sonia specifically. I had tried out yoga before I moved to Oneonta many a times. And Kelsey, I'll share a story that Sonia's heard before. I can remember one of my assistants, or two of the girls went to some larger class, and it was in a gym. And they said, you got to do it. You need to rest, relax, and all that, right? So I go, I do the class, and then at the end, you know, I know nothing about yoga, but I tried to do and be quiet and take direction. And they say, okay, lay down, turn off the lights. And they're trying, you know, for me to rest. And, and as they're saying, the doors are closing, the doors are closing, you'll rest, you'll rest. Well, my doors were slamming like bam, bam, bam. And I couldn't help but laugh, but it wasn't for me. Whereas I think the approach that has always been taken from the first day that I entered Murphy House and then transitioned into the new is you're always mindful about that individual person and what their level of understanding is, their internal anxieties, you know, whether, you know, we hate to say it, but you know, you put on yoga pants, some, you know, I don't look as I don't feel as flattering. I don't feel I'm flattering my body type, but it's not about that. And I've always thought that you've always made us all feel like we're equal. We're going to get there. You'll get to whatever that goal is, but we're going to do this together. I am so grateful that I've watched this journey and been a part of it. It really has been life changing. And the fact that you are in a small community, you're really giving what some would find in, you know, a larger city, but on a more personal level. Do either of you want to speak to that part?
And I don't know if this resonates for Kelsey too. I have a massage therapy background, as does Kelsey. And one of the things that I like to bring into my classes is that sense of personal one-on-one attention. So it might be some loving enhancements, like little loving, gentle touches as everyone's laying down in our final pose, Shavasana, and just to let them know that I'm here with them. But that they are, you know, free and supported to just let go and relax because they put in the work, and it's this much deserved time to just experience the work that you've just put in. Just through my yoga teacher training, expanding my knowledge on connection and union, just understanding that we are all one. You know, I am you, you are me. So the way that I would like to hold the space for everyone within a yoga class is exactly how I would want to have that space held for me as well. So I do think that for yoga teachers, it is a very personal exchange of energy. It's one that we really enjoy receiving when we are a student. And even though we have a teacher hat on when we're teaching a class, we're still learning from everybody who's in the class as well. So we have our student hat on as well. So I think it makes it really easy, at least for me, to maintain that personal connection with everyone, to be able to see everyone, to let everybody know that they are being seen, they're valued, and they're loved, and they are an asset to our community within the studio itself, and then beyond, within Oneonta and the surrounding areas. So that is something that I definitely want to foster in all of my classes. And I think all of our teachers feel the same way, because we were all students too, and we all started from chapter 1 also. So we know how the journey is different for everyone, but we know we all go through those chapters.
Yes. So Kelsey, now with the new normal, or whatever we're calling it, and the opportunity to begin to pivot into virtual teaching, how have you, what are the pros, what are the cons? Do you want to continue it? How to continue it? If you can talk a little about that.
So I remember, we all know that this kind of came in very quickly, and I was out of town actually to celebrate my sister, who was supposed to be married during the pandemic. I was out of town celebrating with her, and kept getting messages like, is Tribe going to go online? And I was like, nah. And Sonia and I had discussed, like, okay, let's get something together to let the teachers know that, like, if we have to cut down on classes, like, we want them to be prepared, just in case our community isn't confident in coming out quite so much. But, we thought we were ages away from having to actually shut our doors. And within that weekend, that Monday, our last class was at noon on Monday. And so I had gotten a lot of questions about going online, and I was like, oh, it's like not really my forte, and we're going to do what we can. And then it was just within that week, it was like, all right, it's time to pivot, it's time to change, it's time to look into Zoom, see what we can do, see what it looks like, and go from there. So people were pretty excited for our classes to be offered online so that they didn't have to miss out on their practice. And we immediately made the decision to keep them all donation based, because a lot of people were furloughed or not experiencing the same income that they had in the past. And the most important thing to us was that people were still able to practice no matter what. So we automatically dropped it to donation-based classes. And then I would say the biggest pros that we've seen is that a lot of students who we knew but maybe kind of fell out of the habit of coming into our studio, busy moms, working people who are working crazy hours, like all of these people that we haven't seen in a while, were able to tune in again, and they were so grateful, especially those who were coming from out of town, because we have a great population in Oneonta, but as Sonia mentioned, we're really the only studio within, there's Binghamton, there's Albany, there's a couple popping up in the Hudson Valley and a little bit closer to the Catskills, but we're the only dedicated studio within, an hour. So a lot of the people that were coming over from Delaware County or, the surrounding areas were able to access our classes a lot easier. But to kind of piggyback on what Sonia was saying a moment ago about just the relationship that's cultivated in the room, it's nearly impossible to have that same interaction through a screen. You're not able to really watch other people practice. And as much as we like to promise you that no one's watching, we mean no one but us. Like, we are watching, and we're doing that out of love and care and sensitivity for your practice. And we use that as a way to cultivate this co-creative experience. So when you walk into a yoga classroom, every teacher has their own process. Some teachers might have something very, very strict that they stick to, but that class is going to be affected by the people who are in it, no matter who you are. And I think that that's a very beautiful thing, but it's something that does start to get watered down when it comes to the virtual world. So there's a little bit less of that being able to see, because we don't want people to feel that they need to have their video cameras on. They're at home, they're in their PJs, their cats are rolling around, their babies are running in, they're in the middle of their life. So a lot of folks choose not to turn their video on. And then on top of that, we want to be demonstrating the poses so that we're actually teaching and doing the practice at the same time, which might not be what we normally do in a class where we can walk around and kind of teach within the crowd. So there's been a little bit of challenge with that in terms of forming that connection, but nothing that, it's not something we can't get past. I think that there's so much to gain from having this virtual tool. And I do think that when we get back into our regular classes, having this as a tool to provide for accessibility for anyone who can't come to our studio physically, so they can still experience the yoga that's going on in our studio, and just to be a resource for people to rely on if they're traveling, or those who maybe come to our studio. We have people who come in over the summer and they're so excited to have found this little gem in the middle of nowhere and be able to tap into our classes whenever and wherever. I think is something that will definitely continue to expand, but it'll hopefully be something that just kind of supports our larger picture rather than our full picture.
If there was a person like I was before somebody invited me to try yoga, I was hesitant to try yoga. What are your words of wisdom for that first step? And if I could get each of you to answer that, to make it beyond the yoga pants.
I was really happy to hear a little bit about your experience before with coming into tribe and not seeing what you expected in terms of like the intimidation factor. And I do think that is a unique gift that we have in this small community, because we are not in direct competition with several other yoga studios in town, as you might find in a big city. And our biggest competition is really the preconceived notion of what yoga is, and that big barrier that people, if you haven't been exposed to yoga yet, you probably have only seen a bunch of young fit women doing acrobatic poses on Instagram and in the news and doing all these incredibly beautiful things, but you see that and you're like, where do I fit in this picture? But for us, we try very hard to get the word out that is part of yoga for those who are on that path, but it is not the bigger picture of yoga. And there's so much, like, there is a yoga for every person. I have clients from age 8 to 93. I have clients who can't walk on their own. I have clients who have had major strokes. I have clients who have a full-time helper. There are people doing yoga everywhere that I think are not necessarily at the forefront of the vision when you think of yoga. Mm-hmm. And so I say that as encouragement to tell people that you do not have to be flexible to try yoga. You do not have to be in your optimum picture of health to start yoga, but it is a great start to attain those goals if those are your goals.
So well said, Sonia. I think you'll remember when I did my first backbend.
Right.
It was a solid practice of 2 years, and I can still hear you going, you did it, Jill. And then I went and I found a picture of myself as a youth doing a backbend. I put them side by side, but it was 2 years of just, I knew that was my goal, and I think silently Sonia knew that, but then just one day it happened. And again, I wasn't looking to put my head over, I just was stepping to the next step that physically felt good to me.
So if I were to address someone who's coming to Tribe Yoga for the first time, and especially if they're feeling a little intimidated or unsure about their experience there, one of my teachers on her website says, new to yoga, we were once too. You know, so that we know that feeling. We know that feeling of intimidation or uncertainty or of the, you know, possible eyes on you, which everybody feels like that in the studio too. So rest assured, no one's looking at you. It's just the teacher to make sure that we can support you best, you know. And also that we're here when you're ready, you know. So there is something beautiful about the organic nature in which our students find us. You know, that we haven't done any mass marketing or you know, even target marketing to try to fill the studio to the brim. We've come to understand that we're really wanting to support people who are very curious and or want to continue a practice that they've already established, because that's where me personally, I know how to support them best. I'm not into trying to convince someone that they need yoga or should do yoga, because there are practices, so many different practices that'll speak to so many different people. But if you're ready to try it, we're here. You know, when you're ready to step in through the door, we'll hold your hand, we'll support you. If you want to just lay down on your mat and listen to the soothing sounds of your teacher teaching, that's yoga too. Everything that you do within the room is yoga, and there's no judgment. There's no obligations. You know, it's just an invitation to be a part of the community and to just sit with yourself, you know, and to be there for yourself. So we're here when you need.
And to your point about laying down, if that's what you need, I remember you saying that, and you always say that. I should say it's always been part of the philosophy. And I can remember one day that's what I needed, and I came in and I felt like I was still part of the class. It was just an amazing feeling that I just laid down. I didn't do one pose. I was part of the energy that filled that room, and I love what you built, and I'm so happy that you are sharing this with everyone through the Small Talk with Jill. And this is no small talk. This is great things that you ladies are doing, and I know you have a team of other yogis practicing with you who I adore. You have some amazing people working together. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon before we close down here?
I did want to briefly mention some of the aspects of the studio that I think really sets it apart or is very attractive, in particular to this time. You know, Oneonta is a beautiful town, and I'm, you know, from city life, so it's been an adjustment for me. But the community is such that it's so deserving of the things that it, you know, could benefit from or could share in together. So the studio itself has a fresh air intake system, which means that for the health of the physical space as well as for all the bodies who are in there, it is constantly taking the air inside the studio out of the building and then drawing in fresh air from outside of the studio into the studio. So you're always getting a cycle of fresh air inside the studio. We have zebra athletic flooring on the ground, which is a firm foam flooring. So it's so nice for the joints, especially if you're new to yoga, to have something that's that supportive. It's firm enough that it can help you with balance, but it's soft enough that it's very friendly to the ankles and the knees and the wrists when you're in certain yoga poses. You know, when we do open up the studio, and depending on how we're able to work this through with policies as they come out for social distancing and things like that, we also have a steam room available. We have an infrared sauna available. And then once we're back up to our heated yoga classes, we have infrared panels, which infrared heat is so beneficial to the joints and circulation to the body. And Kelsey actually knows a lot more about the infrared and how it works within the body and around the body, but just the detoxification that happens, even just simply being in the room, is really incredible. And these kinds of features you would not find in the average yoga studio, but we brought it here because Oniana deserves it. And it's just been such a joy and a blessing to be awarded the micro enterprise grant from the city to be able to provide these amenities to the community. So we're hopeful that people will come and take advantage.
This is not just a yoga business. That, I think that's the key to what we're all saying here, is that it truly is a practice. It's a practice, mind, body, and soul all combined, and it's ever evolving. And to your point earlier, is that you are yogis, but you're continuing your practices to bring the best practice to anybody that walks into the studio.
Just thinking about, you know, the moving forward and coming back into business in person, is that we also do private yoga instruction and small yoga groups. So if anyone listening is interested but they're still not sold on the group and they're not sure that that's the right way, we have a wonderful program. It's called Let's Start Yoga. You start with one-on-one class, 60-minute private session with Sonia or myself or any of our other teachers if you choose. And we recommend classes to help with your goals, and we get you to a point where you feel ready to enter into that group. And then you can continue with private instruction and group classes. You can intermingle the two. It's just a really great way for anyone who, a lot of us really like to know the rules before we begin.
My personality.
And a lot of us just want to know, okay, I need somebody to tell me I'm not going to look silly, but I need to believe that. And sometimes starting with a private session is the way to do that. So that's also a big thing that we're going to be trying to expand as group sizes are, you know, we want everybody's safety to be the first priority. So that's another option. And also, I converted all the heat in my house to infrared. It's really beautiful. It's very efficient, and it's just wonderful for your body. And I recommend it for everybody.
Oh, that's amazing. So Sonia, when she said the you know, what the rules are, I think back to, okay, now what size mat should I have? What size block? Should I get the straps? Oh my gosh, I drove you crazy because that was me. Like, what? Okay, Jill, it'll come. This is all gonna. I was one of those people. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I am too.
And I for a long time,
that's why we get along so well.
That's right. For a long time, I took one-on-one lessons with you, Sonia, before, well, in between the groups. And one of my favorite stories, maybe we can touch really quick upon this, and I forget the name of the instrument when you what's that instrument?
Harmonium.
Yes. Oh, when it came in the mail, I think it was the next day, or you had just gotten it that day, and to just listen to the sounds, you go the extra mile, but it's not the extra mile for work or for business. It's the extra mile of education and learning and providing the best practices for yourself and your clients. You are unique, and this story needs to be shared with the world, and I feel very blessed to know you and be able to share it with you. And let's hope that our new norm will allow for some of the old norm to come back here soon.
Yes. Yeah, and we miss you, Jill, and just want to say, oh my gosh, this is an amazing service that you're providing for all of the local businesses in Oneonta, and then just within your own business too, that you have, you know, on D Street. So we're all D Street sisters.
We are. Well, it's been a pleasure, and everyone, you can watch this on YouTube, share it on your Facebook pages, tweet about it, and open up a dialogue. If you do have questions, open up a dialogue with Sonia and Kelsey or one of the other teachers, how to get beyond the yoga pants.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies. Namaste.
Oh, thank you so much.
Take a moment here to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any other updates from Small Talk with Jill.
Until next time, remember, here on Small Talk, we are connecting people to people and business to business.